Hey guys, so I am going to show you how to make your faux fur pom-pom. So to do that, you just need your piece of fur, you need your polyfiber stuffing, your needle, and a strong piece of thread. You can use a cording. We use embroidery floss thread for ours. You just need something that's going to be good and strong. So to start with, you just thread your needle. Sometimes this takes a few tries. And then you take your square fur. So typically if you can see how the pile of the fur usually runs in one direction, so typically we use that as our starting point, so that will be at the top. And all you do is you just pick up small pieces of fabric and you basically just sew around the outside of the fur, making sure to leave a tail here so that you're not pulling it all the way through. So quickly sew your way around the fur. Sometimes the fur can get stuck in the thread, so sometimes you have to just kind of pull it out as you go. So I typically don't leave more than like a centimeter in between each stitch. And you can use whatever color thread you'd like. I find that you don't see it, so if your thread doesn't match your fur, typically that's fine. Okay, so we are back at the beginning. We just poke kind of close to where our first piece of string goes in. Pull your needle off. So at this point, you are going to pull the strings tight, and you want to pull them so that they're relatively even in length. But don't pull it too tight because you need to put your filling in there. So you just take a small pinch. It depends on how firmly you want them stuffed, but generally it's just to make the pom hold its shape and not be hollow inside. So typically I don't find you'd need too much more. So at this point, this is kind of the trickiest part of it, is knotting it nice and tight without getting all of the fur stuck in your knots. So generally I try to pull the fur away, pull these tight, and then we do what is called, I'm pretty sure it's called a surgeon's knot. So you take your two strings, and typically a normal knot you'd loop it under once, but we do it 2-3 times total. And then yeah, when you're pulling it tight, you want to make sure this area is going to be clear of as much fur as possible, and then you can pull it nice and tight. It's never going to be completely tight, but that's good and tight. Like I cannot get my finger in there. And the nice thing about that type of knot is it will stay tight, so you don't have to like hold your finger down to keep your knot nice and tight. It'll stay tight. And so we're going to knot it, do a regular knot on top of that one. You can see that it's already kind of gotten a bit lost in the fur. As long as little as possible is in the way, it'll work out fine. This part's going to be hidden by your hat anyways, so it doesn't need to be absolutely perfect. So I just do a normal knot, and then what we typically do is, you can see how your strings kind of end up on one side. This is where my circle comes together and the strings are on one side. So then what I will do is I'll take one of my strings and I'll thread it on my needle again. Oh, there, my phone's going off in the background. Sorry, I'm just trying to thread my needle here. The end's gotten a bit frayed. Okay, I'm gonna use my other end. Okay. Oh, almost. Sometimes you gotta wet your string a little bit just to get it through. Okay. So then what I'll do is I'll take one of the two strings and I'll just poke it through the base of the pom out the other side. And then if you find that you weren't able to tie your pom-pom up as tight as you would like, and there's too much of a hole right here, then what you can do is loop this string through. So now essentially you can see you have one string kind of on either side of the hole. Then if you needed to further tighten it, you could just tie these 2 strings together, do another surgeon's knot, and then they'll be good and tight, if you can kind of see. But otherwise, you are good to go. That's your finished pom-pom.